It's an Ask LOJ edition on a Friday. Will the Jazz be better next year? Will Lauri sign? What pieces do we have? Who are we building around? A plethora of questions next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz. Today, your Ask LOJ questions, because you're the best. Here's what we got. Running down the list to open up the show, probably in order. Will the Jazz be better next year? Will Utah Jazz sign Lauri Markkanen into an extension? If the Jazz are building around Keyonte and Lauri, what's the next piece? How do you honestly feel about the Jazz constantly tearing down each year just to save a draft pick? Oh, the tone of that question. Are the defensive struggles coaching or personnel? Why do people think Colin Sexton is a bad defender? I know he's small, but he plays hard. Is Bryce Sensabaugh an NBA player? And will Isaiah Thomas play for the Jazz? And maybe the question that has me the most perplexed is, why do they call it a front office? That is all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube. Thumbs up for all the great questions today on YouTube. Appreciate that. You guys are the best. Thank you for sending them in, and thank you to the everydayers who join us each and every day and make this show what it is. Super fun to be a part of. I love doing this show every day. A little later today, I needed a casual start to my day today. If I'm totally honest, my 84-year-old father is in town, and he's wearing me out. He's relentless. He's awesome, but I'm just exhausted. So I needed a slow morning, did a little yoga, did a little meditation, did a little house duties, and now I'm jacked to do the show. So let's get right to it. What honestly I think is one of the best questions there is. Will the Utah Jazz be better next year? By the way, today's show is brought to you in part by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. I actually love this question because it's so straightforward, it's so urgent, and it so sums up where a portion of our fan base is with what's going on with the Jazz. And I'm going to try to do the best I can to answer this question because I actually think it's the most important question for Jazz fans right now. So the first thing we've talked about an awful lot in this show is that you and I, as fans of the Jazz, are looking at the Jazz night in and night out on a one-night basis. Are we going to win tonight? Are we going to go upset the Denver Nuggets Saturday night as they're hungover from their win against the Celtics and walk out with a win on Saturday night? That's where we are. Are we on April 15th? We talked about this earlier this year. Are we on April 15th going to be in the play-in or the playoff for Steph Curry sprained his ankle last night? And maybe the Warriors are going to fall and we're going to make a run and the front office isn't there. They're looking, and Justin Zanuck said in an interview with Ben and Hans on 9 and on KSL Sports Zone. Danny Ainge said it. They've been very consistent. They've never wavered on this. They're looking long-term at building a consistent long-term winner with an extended championship window. That's their goal. That's their star. And as someone who runs a company, when you run a company, you have to have a clearly defined goal. We do all sorts of things at Locked On where we start to try this and try to start that. And we always lose every time we make a mistake, it's when we're not pointed at our star. Our star is your team every day, local experts, biggest stories every day. That's who Locked On is. We're giving you the local experts. Right now, if you turn on the national sports show, Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on Amazon TV, Fire TV, you have, at this exact moment that I'm recording, you have our Timberwolves experts giving a breakdown of their win over the Indiana Pacers, which is more in depth and better than a bunch of national guys yahooing about Anthony Edwards' incredible block last night. That's our guiding light. The Utah Jazz front office's guiding light, their North Star is long-term extended winning with long-term extended winning with an extended championship window. That's their goal. So will the Jazz be better next year? To me, has this great feel to it. Like, I love this question because it's this implication of, like, I'm done with this crap. We are 20 months since we traded 5 of our best players, and I'm done with it. Like, that's how I feel when I get that question. I'm done with it. This is 2 years of this. I'm done with it. It's the same thing. Like, I have a question that I loved. I mentioned, how do you honestly feel about the Jazz constantly tearing down? Like, 2 years. So I get it, because I want to beat Denver on Saturday and call the game and have this excitement and have this moment and win this game as a fan, and I'm totally there with you. But frankly, it's a longer play, and that's hard. And when the Jazz decided to trade Rudy Gobert to Minnesota, and then Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to be the piece to build around for the future for all sorts of reasons, and then Bojan was moved and Mike Conley was traded, and Royce O'Neal got us a draft pick that's Bryce Sensabaugh. Like, that's 5 best players on the team got traded. Jordan probably would argue that. It's not true, but you got me. Okay? So will the Jazz be better next year? If the opportunity presents itself that matches the guiding light of long-term extended winning with an extended championship window, yes. But is there also a chance that the Jazz go into the free agent market this year and don't get anything, that they go try to acquire a player via trade with their assets and it doesn't yield them, and I'll give an example of what I mean here in a second, yield them the right player they want, and that they actually go into next season with 3 new draft picks, maybe 2, 3 picks from this last year, Keyonte, Taylor, and Bryce getting extended minutes, and Walker still trying to develop with Lauri, and we're not better? Or we're just the same? Yes, that's a chance too. Because the guiding light is not to April 15th of 2024, or frankly to April 15th of 2025. And then the next question is like, when do we ever get out of it? Sure, that's true. At some point, we've got to use our assets. We've got to get the opportunity. We've got to push forward 100%. But you don't want to do this in the eyes of trying to become better the next year. And okay, so that's the great question. I'm going to leave it at that. I got a bunch of other thoughts. Let's get to the next question, because the show will get to, I'll never get to the next questions. Will the Utah Jazz sign Lauri Markkanen into an extension? So Lauri Markkanen, the Jazz desire is to sign Lauri Markkanen into an extension. The Jazz, it's a little complicated. The Jazz have some cap space in this offseason, and so they can actually use that cap space to sign Lauri to a long-term extension. Lauri is 7'1", shoots 40% from 3, is a total stud, is a great teammate, is a super member of the community, is an awesome player to have in your franchise, is an absolute great piece to build around, is one of your pieces. Yes, they love him. There's no doubt that the Jazz organization's goal is to keep Lauri Markkanen. That they love him. Lauri seems to like it here. His family seems to like it here. Everything points to that. It's a little complicated. It's a little restricted in what they can do right now with an extension. And there is a chance that Lauri and his representation say, actually, we'll go to free agency because we can make way more money in free agency, which still could mean he resigns. It's not great. We'd rather have him sign an extension because then there's no risk. But that's also a possibility. If he gets there, that doesn't mean he wants out. That doesn't mean he doesn't like it here. It doesn't mean the Jazz don't like him here. It just means that the amount of money he can make by doing that may be, depending on, I'm trying to stay out of, being a generalist here on purpose. Maybe I'll leave it to Dan Clayton over at Salt City Hoops to be the specific guy in this one. He does a great work with it. So Dan, if you're listening, do a story on it. That is my take on that. That you have that, yes, the desire is to re-sign him. They'll make an effort to re-sign him. Lauri then has to make a decision of whether the security of that at the number the Jazz can do with their cap space, which I believe will be less than what he could do if he takes the risk to go into free agency, is where he feels on that teeter-totter. So that'll be Lauri's decision. Okay? But the Jazz, yes. If you heard Justin with Ben and with Hans and Scotty, like he said it. Like, we love him. We want him. He's fabulous. Every piece of it. How do I honestly feel about the Jazz constantly tearing down each year to save a draft pick? Yeah, there is a tongue-in-cheek in the way I presented that. But we'll talk about it. How I honestly feel. I will totally share honestly, because the implication is that all I ever do, if he hadn't asked for that honesty, is that I've lied to you. For 300 days a year, I do this show, 250. And I lie to you the whole time. But because he asked for it honestly, you're going to get honesty next on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by my friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. I think I should always have a casual morning. I have so much energy right now. It's great. Instead of slumbering out of bed to do this show. Murdoch Hyundai, located 4646 South State Street, and also in Logan and Linden. The Murdochs and Ben and Blake and Tyson and the longstanding family have been in Utah for over 80 years. I mean, they are Utah personified. And that I thought showed most during COVID when Blake was like, yeah, we're not upping our charges on our cars. No, we're not doing that because I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not going to the church. I'm not going to the Jazz game and seeing people who I got an extra $2,000 from because there was a supply chain problem and I could. That's just not who they are. He's like, in the long run, we will keep our community loyalty and we will be place that people trust all of the time. And that's what makes the Murdochs so great and Hyundai so great. The Hyundai lineup of cars, the Tucson, the Santa Fe, all the rest are absolutely fabulous, bringing you the Palisade, and the Santa Fe has arrived. The 2024 new Santa Fe has arrived. It's pretty awesome. Go check it out over at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs, a great place for you. We use it. We're doing a bunch of hiring for post-game show hosts and new hosts and various other positions in our network. We use LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free today. That's what we're doing. It's a great place. They've got for small businesses like us. Hiring is easy when you have as many candidates. So easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows the small businesses are wearing so many hats, they might not have time or resources to hire. So that's why they've built this system with 2.5 million small businesses using LinkedIn for hiring today. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn's a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all this while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have as many qualified as LinkedIn. So 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. That's okay. I'm still here, everybody. My doorbell rang and I wasn't sure what it was, so I stepped away to go look for a second. I'm back. All right, let's get back to your questions. My favorite one of the day, me finally being honest. So how do I honestly feel about the Jazz constantly tearing down each year to give up a draft pick? Okay, the question's great because we've done it for 2 years. I really do feel like, hey, we're 20 months away from trading our 5 best players. Like, there's going to be some pain for that. I understand fans don't want pain, but that's my number one feeling on this. My number one thing is like, when the day we traded Rudy, the day we traded Donovan, I get it because I live day to day and I want to win every day too. And I admire the organization, the fact that we've played to win every day. That I'm super happy for. We've played to win every single game with the intention of building for the future for an extended championship run. But we've still played to win every single day, which I think is great. We played to win last night. We played to win against Washington. We're going to play to win against Denver. Probably won't, right? Let's be honest. Like, Denver's awesome. They've been together for 5 years. They're the perfect model. They've built the whole thing. We can talk about it next week. Like, that's the model. They've done it. They hit on Jokic. It's exactly what we're trying to do. and have as many picks as possible so that somehow you hit on Jokic. Somehow you hit on Giannis. Somehow you hit on Jason Tatum. Easier at 3 than at 46. So, but with this said, there is definitely a wear and tear on the coaching staff, on the players, on the fan base when the Jazz do what they've done at the trade deadline both the last 2 years. It is 100% reasonable. It makes perfect sense to me. All of those deals are like kind of no-brainers, honestly. Like Simone Fontecchio for a second-round pick, first pick of the second round from a team that has $70 million of cap space that's like 8 and 800 is basically telling you, if you didn't figure that, if you don't trade it to him now, we're going to offer him a 4-year, $50 million deal, and you're not going to match it, and you're going to lose him. So how about we give you a second-round pick, and then quite honestly, Detroit only has to pay Simone a 4-year, $32 million deal in the offseason because there'll be no other bidders for him because he's a restricted free agent. And then the Detroit Pistons just saved $18 million by giving us a second-round pick. That's really what happened there. Okay, Kelly Olynyk is awesome. I love him. He's one of my most favorite players. I emailed him when he got traded, telling him how enjoyable he was to carry. I have not done that with a lot of players. I've done that with twice, Mike Conley and Kelly Olynyk. I reached out to both of them and said, thank you. You're just unbelievable people. And they both responded to tell you that they're unbelievable people. Okay, but he's also 32 years old. He just signed a 2-year contract. Some of that money we just talked about with Lauri might extension. Kelly would impact that. And frankly, I'm not sure where Kelly fits with John Collins and Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen and Taylor Hendricks. And if we made a decision on Bryce to push Bryce Sensabaugh's path open by moving Ochai Agbaji and got a first-round pick for that, it's a pretty awesome deal. And like Ochai is awesome. But you know what? Like at some point here, and it could be just a sophomore slump, and I hope it's not. Like, I hope he turns it around. But at some point, Ochai is now played 121 games and shoots a career 34% from 3, trending in the wrong direction, and does not have a great dribble drive game and is not an incredible passer and is a good defender, but he's really a 3-and-D shooter who isn't a good shooter yet and is 24 years old. I hope it turns. I hope he becomes a 40% three-point shooter instead of 3-and-D. And I hope he develops a dribble drive game, and I hope he becomes awesome. But like, we're getting awfully close with him where you have to kind of begin to ask yourself, like, oh, is this okay? And I will tell you, my biggest pet peeve on organizations in this league is one of two things, and they are related. They're when they have a player who has given you every indicator that it's not going to work, or they're not what you hope they're going to be, and you hold on to them for whatever reason because you're hoping you're wrong or because you're trying to make yourself look good. And the Jazz just did the opposite with Ochai. It's very hard to trade a guy early, but the Jazz may have just traded Ochai early, and we'll see. But there's also a chance that like the last 30 games of his NBA career where Ochai has shot 32% from the field and 22% from 3 in 17 minutes a night is a real indicator. And there was a real chance that we were moments away from Bryce Sensabaugh taking Ochai Agbaji's minutes or somebody else taking his minutes, and then Ochai was not a rotation player, and then his value was gone. So how do I honestly feel about the Jazz constantly tearing down each year just to save a draft pick? Is the trades they made this year were really no-brainers. The trade they made last year is trading Mike Conley was really a no-brainer. They got a first-round pick from the Lakers as top 4 protected us all. And the Lakers, who knows? There is definitely a wear and tear on the coaching staff, on the players, and on the fan base. That cannot be ignored because while the vision of the front office is long-term, and that's what they're doing this all for, all of the rest of us are sitting there rooting day to day. And so that's the struggle. But how do I feel about it? I guess this gets to the last piece. and this is me just being really stark about things. I think, honestly, the people that are complaining, and that includes everyone involved, me, fans, everyone, is a little delusional about where we were in the process and how good we actually were. Right? Like, if we didn't make trades each of the last 2 years, our best case scenario, I still believe, is we were going to be 10th in the Western Conference and play a playing game. Yeah, it would have been way more fun for the final 15 games to be playing games with that carrot out there. I got it. I just don't think that's matches to trying to build a championship team in a long term with an extended window. That's my thought. If you're building around Keyonte and Lauri, what is your next piece? So I'm going to go general here for a second. I don't know that we're building around Keyonte and Lauri. I do think you need a top 10, a top 20, and a top 50 player to win. That's what you're trying to build. A top 10, top 20, and a top 50 player. And then you're building, and then you're moving pieces constantly. Like if we have a post-mortem on the Jazz last run, we probably fell in love with our guys and didn't move them enough. Or we couldn't have. I don't know the truth. I don't know what our options were. But if you look at Denver, they moved every single one of their beloved players for a different player and then won a championship, and we held to our guys. On the simplest terms, you look at that. So the obvious one, this is from Spencer Keel, I think is his name, who's just been awesome to us. The obvious thing is obviously if Keyonte and Lauri are your guys, and then you have Walker can play a little defense and you can play a little both of stretch five. I still kind of believe Lauri's our backup center for long term. Then you're looking for some wing. I think you're looking for a big guard. Like I want a 6'7" 2 guard, hard to find, but that's Jaylen Brown, Paul George type player. Then Colin Sexton can come off the bench and play with either of them, Keyonte or that big guard, and we're fine. Keyonte and Colin together feel a little small to me. So yes, I would like that. And then you probably want a second one of those incredible 6'8", 6'9" wing players, which maybe becomes, maybe it's Taylor Hendricks or maybe another one. But that's what you're doing. And then you can build 6'4", Keyonte 6'7", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", Taylor Hendricks 7'1", Lauri in your small lineup that spreads out and you just drive the crap out of people and play it. And then you have Keyonte 6'7", or that's probably with Colin in your small lineup, right? Then you're playing Colin in this guard or Keyonte, this guy, whoever, right? And you're spread out. And then you have Walker and you have Lauri and you have Taylor Hendricks and you're massive. And then you have Keyonte and another big guard. Now you're 6'4", 6'7", 6'7", 6'7", 6'9", 7. Woo! Or like, right? Like that's the dream. That's our ability. You still need top 10, top 20, and top 50. So rather than pieces that fit, I still just want great talent. But I'm not going to lie to you. What I just talked to you excites the hell out of me, right? Keyonte with a 6'7" guard, let's go with Lauri at 7'1", Taylor at 6'9", and Walker Kessler at 7'1" as your starting five. Taylor's going to have to shoot it. And then you're bringing Colin off the bench with either that Keyonte or that 6'7" guard with another 6'7" with somebody else we've acquired along the way, and Lauri is my center. Woo! Let's go, doggy. Like John Collins can fit in there too somehow, some way. But let's do it. Like, yeah. And so that's how you start to piece this thing together. I'm going to go off script here for a second because are we going to be better next year? Leads to me like a specific player who we just saw the other night, who I think we can talk about and have a really interesting discussion about in regards to being better next year. That's next when we continue on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends over at eBay Motors, and you probably know why at this point, because it is time for our eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit of the Week. That is coming to you from our Locked On Fantasy Basketball expert, Josh Lloyd, who is the #1 fantasy basketball expert in the country, and from eBay Motors. All right. Here's Josh Lloyd's 5 players this week you should consider adding to your fantasy roster because they could give you something down the stretch. Kyle Anderson with Karl Anthony Towns out. Anderson will see a larger role, likely start. Be aware the Wolves play just 2 games next week. Kelly Olynyk, he is the starting center now for the Raptors with Jakob Poeltl out for the year, and he can put up a wide-ranging numbers. We know that. Micic is now the starter and solid fantasy ad with after being traded from Oklahoma City to Charlotte. DeAndre Ayton is out, so Diop Reith is your fantasy option starting there. And Kyle Lowry could start to get some time in Philadelphia. Josh Lloyd is Locked On Fantasy Basketball's host. He is the #1 fantasy basketball expert in the country. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about finding the perfect fit, even in the smallest ways with a player like we just mentioned. So if you're looking for your ride or die to get its perfect fit with over 122 million parts, you can get that from eBay Motors. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it with eBay Guaranteed Fit. It's guaranteed to fit your ride this time or every time, your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Motors, Guaranteed Fit, available only to U.S. customers. eBay Motors. And Josh Lloyd, the Guaranteed Fit. Locked On Sports Today is your first ever 24/7 national sports channel on YouTube, streaming all the time. So if you watch ESPN or you watch Fox up on your television, throw it up there. Add Locked On Sports Today on the screen. You'll get the national experts on the biggest or local experts on the biggest stories, giving you awesome. Right now, Locked On Big Ten just popped up after finishing the Timberwolves postcast. Like, I'm telling you, it's just kind of awesome how you go from one to the next. And you just get a full day of awesome sports. I love it. All right. Are the Jazz going to, I'm going back to this. Are the Jazz going to be better next year? Let me ask you a question. Would you sign DeMar DeRozan? Like, this was the same question. Like, if we wanted to make the playoffs, we should have traded for James Harden. So DeMar DeRozan is a free agent. DeMar DeRozan is 34 years old, will be 35 next year on opening day. And DeMar DeRozan averages 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. And DeMar DeRozan at 6'6" would be a really good guard next to Keyonte and Lauri. And if we signed DeMar DeRozan next year, we would probably win somewhere around 38 to 44 games. Is that what you want? Give me your thoughts on YouTube, on Twitter, on X. Email me, dlock09. Like, Jazz could be better next year by signing DeMar DeRozan to a 2-year, $60 million contract. And have him for the next 2 years, and have him there, and he's guaranteed scorer, and he's one of the best clutch players in the NBA, and he gets his little mid-range hoppers. He's scored 20 points a game for 12 straight years, I think it is. Like, he's bona fide. He's a good dude, plays right, does move it, despite what people think. I mean, he gets like 5 or 6 assists a game. Like, he moves it. Would you trade for DeMar DeRozan? That would make us better next year. It is inconsistent, at least I think, with building a team with a long window because he takes the minutes, he's playing the most minutes of anyone in the NBA, 34 minutes a night away from other players. But just tell me what you think, because I think that's a really interesting question. All right, let's fire through things. I think this is the #1 question for the Jazz internally in the offseason. Are the defensive struggles, not coaching or personnel, that was the way it was phrased. Why are we having such a hard time defensively? That, I think, is the #1 thing I think Will Hardy will dig into. They've done a lot of different things. They played zone. He will believe strongly that we've got to alter up your defense if you're going to be a championship caliber team and be able to go through the playoffs playing a multitude of defenses. And I think when you start to look at how we're going to get better one day, we've got to figure out how to be better defensively. How do we use Walker in a way that gets us, that we have, like, Walker's really, really good defensively. We have not shown huge indicators yet with Walker that he can carry the defense the way a Rudy Gobert has, or maybe a Jarrett Allen has in Cleveland, or even an Evan Mobley maybe there. That hasn't happened yet. So I do think this is a question. I don't know the answer. I'm a little surprised at how bad we are defensively. Though there are some personnels where I kind of like, okay, I kind of get it. We're trying to figure it out. Like, if you look at us defensively, yeah, we're 6 points per 100 possessions better when Walker's on the floor than when he's off. So that's still that. Taylor Hendricks, we're actually better when he's okay. That's length. Like, our longer player with Simone played hard. Kelly Olynyk played hard. So I think that's a really good question. And I think that's the number one thing that Will Hardy and his coaching staff will probably dig into in the offseason. And I love this question. Actually, I'm trying to figure out how to ask Will this question. So why do people think Colin Sexton's a bad defender? I know he's small, but he plays hard. I'm going to ask you guys this question because I don't know it. I'm probably going to ask Will this question if I can find a way to phrase it correctly. Probably not Denver game because I want to talk to him. I kind of think Jokic and Duncan have a common thread, and I want to see if he thinks that. This is actually related a lot to Sensabaugh and Sexton. Like, okay, Chris Dunn is an awesome defensive player. Jalen Suggs is an awesome defensive player. Derek White on Boston's an awesome defense. Giannis, Rudy, like Jimmy Butler when he digs in. Like, I got it for like the 10 or 15 defensive players in the NBA that truly alter the way the game is played. Marcus Smart at his prime. I got it. I can see that. But off that next tier, I have no flipping idea when I hear NBA coaches and people and experts and Brian Windhorst of the world talk about someone being a good or bad defensive player. I honestly don't have any idea. Like, I don't know what it is. I actually just think if you play hard and get in the right position, you're fine. It's brutal to play defense in this league. There's almost no chance to be good at it. And so, like, a lot of it, I think, is like you look at Ochai Abaji's body and you're like, oh, he's a great defensive player. I didn't really think so. Like, he was fine. But, like, I thought Simone Fontecchio was a far better defensive player than Ochai Abaji, honestly. Like, I thought he impacted plays. I thought he got into guys. I thought he got people off their spots. I thought he did all sorts of things. So, obviously, I have some idea what I'm talking about here in regards to this. There's some guys on our roster who I think are horrendous defensive players. Colin's not one of them. His defensive numbers are bad, though. I will tell you that. Like, some of our guys' closeouts are so lackadaisical on the shooters, it drives me crazy. Some of our guys are, like, if there's a few of our guys on our roster, if they were in, if there are a few guys that, like, on my roster, like, who, if I was in a fast break, I would just attack because I know they're going to play Olay defense every time and not be having resistance. Like, okay, like, I've watched it enough. I've watched 60 games this year. So I'm lost, honestly, out of that top 20 tier of players in the NBA, maybe 15. When we talk about what a good or bad defender is below that, I don't have any idea. Who do we play on like Tuesday? Oh, Celtics. That's not going to work. Somewhere along the way, I'm asking Will this question because I really want this answer because I don't know. So to answer Colin is, yeah, he busts his ass. So I think he's fine. Like, bust your ass, rotate correctly, be in the right spot, be shaded for help, care. I think that's fine because the league's too hard to defend. So, like, Bryce Sensabaugh, like, is Bryce Sensabaugh an NBA player? What have you seen was one of the questions. I think Bryce Sensabaugh is an NBA player from out of college. I loved him because he can shoot. And I think you have to shoot. And I think he can handle. And I think he rebounds well for a guard, which is unique. And I think he passes when he needs to, but he didn't have anybody to pass to on Ohio State. The book on him is he's not a good enough defensive player. And his body's not great. Okay. Like, then try. Pay attention to scouting reports. Be in the right position. And if you get isolated on an island and they beat you, hopefully one of your defenders helps. Like, Kelly Olynyk's a horrendous on-ball one-on-one defender. I think he's fine defensively. He's not a good enough. He can't vertically handle anybody at the rim. He's not denying shots as a center. It's a real problem. Except for the fact that he's usually in the right spot. So I think he, like, denies as much stuff as it allows happen. The other one I would always say, this is my George Niang rule of defense in the NBA. Like, the NBA decided George Niang was a bad defender and they just isolated him every play. And, like, you're just screwed if that happens to you because the players are too good. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. I hope you enjoyed it. Will Isaiah Thomas play for the Utah Jazz? I was asked. I don't know. It would mean he has to be added to the roster. He's an Exhibit 10 player right now. So he's not, like, we can't just call him up the way we can Micah Potter or one of those guys. I do hope Micah Potter gets a shot. The dude's just the ultimate professional. It'd be super sweet if he got some time and got to prove he could shoot at an NBA level. And the really best question of the day is, why do they call it a front office? And I have no idea. This has been Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be in Denver tomorrow. That game will be on SiriusXM, as well as all of your other outlets, UtahJazz.com app or Utah Jazz app, KSL, all that coming your direction as well. Now we send you the first ever 24/7 national sports channel. It's called Locked On Sports Today. Hope you love it. Have a great time. Talk to you soon.